Welcome back to the weekly news roundup by popular demand of the analytics, the statistics, and the commentary. I think most people did like it when we ran it 2 videos for the weekly news roundup. So that is what we are going to do starting today. This will be the privacy and the security. And then in a couple days, we will also drop the business and the Sillyville news. So you guys that did like the shorter ones, you will get those. Again, the chapters, they are in the description, but YouTube decided that since I'm an evil person who teaches people how to use free and open source media players, they will not put chapters on my videos at least until the middle of January. But if you do really need those chapters, they are working over there on Odyssey. So you can go ahead and head on over there. All right, with that intro out of the way, let's go ahead and get diving on into the privacy news. And up first, Eufy is back in the news. You'll remember we talked about these cameras are supposed to be the security cameras that do not use cloud services. And a couple of security researchers picked these things up and found that they were holier than Swiss cheese. They were holier than Catholic Swiss cheese. I mean, really. I mean, these things were basically, they're like, there's no way these are in the cloud. And they found evidence they were in the cloud. There's no way there's doing anything that's not on the camera. They found evidence they were doing things on the camera. There's no way you can access a stream without your account. And they found you could access a stream without an account. And so this whole article is just them basically finally responding to this stuff, and their final response is, this isn't really happening despite the absolute proof that it is, but we've shut down this feature. This isn't, we shut down. I'm not sure what Eufy cameras can do. I don't even know if these things hit video anymore. They basically turned off a bunch of features to prevent you from being able to stream it, even though still holding firm that that you can't stream it anyway. But that's exactly what they're doing anyway, because guess what, guys? It doesn't matter. We are in Sillyville, and being in Sillyville now, being in Clown World, it doesn't matter what the evidence is. It reminds me of, if anybody's seen Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules, and they have the pictures of their massive party up on the TV. Like, what are you doing in this picture, Roderick? And they're like, that's not me. Like, despite absolute uncontrovertible evidence that everything that this camera says it's not doing, they're actually doing it. We're not doing that, but we've shut down the feature to do that. Great. Thank you, Eufy. So that is Eufy's update. It's a whole bunch of, we disabled a whole bunch of features, but the stuff you said was happening really isn't happening. Just look somewhere else. Please look over there. Woo, yikes. All right, and now moving on to the new and terrifying news. Google is now working on a service that can read your doctor's bad handwriting for your prescriptions. Now, I will remind you once again, Google bought Fitbit. Google is also working on a health insurance company. Technically, it is Alphabet, Google's parent company, working on the health insurance company. Fitbit is part of Google now, and starting, I believe, this year, 2023, I believe that this is the year that any new Fitbits have to use Google accounts instead of the old Fitbit accounts, and within 2 years, all accounts have to be converted to Google accounts instead of Fitbit accounts. So Google is now tracking all of your health data, feeding it into their system, and now they would really like you to just give them your prescriptions, so now Google can keep track of all your prescriptions as well. Now, this is something they said they're not pushing it out quite yet, but they're testing it, and they're testing it over in India. And they're actually testing it with a variety of different languages as well. So Google for India is the company's annual event in South Asia market, where it showcases dozens of new developments. The company said is working on a single unified model to cover more than 100 Indian languages for both speech and text to empower the internet journey of the next millions of individuals in the South Asian market. All right, so they are saying that they're not doing this yet, but it is something that they are capable of doing. And so I will tell you this is a really bad news. Further bad news, this was basically a bunch of driver's license numbers leaked out, and somebody sued over saying, hey, this is pretty bad that driver's licenses are leaking. And so a bunch of judges get together and they basically come out and say that, well, driver's license numbers aren't as important as social security numbers. And so they're not really part of the California stuff as far as personally identifiable information. I read this whole thing. It was like, this is bizarre. In some opinions, while opinions from California federal court suggest they are becoming less sympathetic to future unrealizing harm stemming from data breaches, especially where social security numbers aren't involved, other courts still seem willing to find the theft less sensitive information, such as driver's license numbers, sufficient to confer standing. This is especially true when the plaintiff is able to convince the court that the exposed information can be used for identity theft, to rack up fraudulent charges, or to gain access to additional personal information. So, I mean, if you get stopped by a police officer and he has a legitimate reason to ask for your license, and you're like, I don't have it with me, but I have my driver's license number, and they look it up based on that. Now, they can see the photo from the driver's license number. They can kind of see if it's you or not. But the fact of the matter is the driver's license number is considered real identifying information. And yes, it should be. Now, what they're basically saying is, hey, you weren't actually damaged yet by the theft of your driver's license number, so we're really not going to do anything about it. And we don't really consider all that important because, driver's license numbers can be changed, yet not easily. Okay, you can move out of state and come back, and I'm not sure if you get a different driver's license. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at my Pennsylvania driver's licenses before and after I was in the state, seeing if the number has actually changed or if it's like, hey, this dude's back. Let's give him the same number. But this is kind of bad, kind of saying that, yeah, if someone steals your driver's license number, it's not a really big deal. It's not like stealing your social security number, which is kind of insane. Oh, Jeffrey's saying in Arizona, your social security number is your driver's license number. Well, very good. Well, Arizona's all backwards anyway, as we can tell from the last. We can't even talk about that, can we? We'll just shut up now. Fortnite, Epic Games ends up having to pay $520 million over privacy and billing claims. Part of this was collecting information on children under the age of 13 without informing their parents or getting consent. The other part of it is from the company charging money to dark patterns and billing practices. So basically, if you hit certain buttons during loading screens, they would charge your account. Like, what? And then they feed you little ads about how cool it is to click those buttons in between the counts. Kind of like the old Mega Man 2, if you hold, was it B and left or something? When you selected the next dude you're going to fight, instead of stars shooting across, it was ducks that were shooting across. Do cool stuff like that. We'll make more money. And so it had to do with that. It had to do with the data being collected and used for marketing, apparently, as well. And so they end up having to pay back $520 million over these issues. So whatever. There's Fortnite for you. How can we possibly scam as much money out of people as we possibly can scam? That would be a totally interesting thing to look at. And this was an interesting one here from MIT Tech Reviews. Roomba recorded a woman on the toilet and the picture ended up on Facebook. Okay, then. Now, allegedly, the Roombas that you buy in online are not collecting video of everything and pictures and uploading them. But where these came from is development and AI training models that they gave to contractors and employees of the company to run. And then, of course, they were made aware that the thing was collecting data and sending it up. And then they would take all of the data and they sent it down. It was somewhere in South America, I believe. They sent it to some third world country to, pay some people, a few pennies a day to sift through everything and make sure the AI was working well. And so what happened is these things end up collecting a ton of photos and video, including this picture of this lady on the toilet. But then these things, they're using these to train AI and Roombas to teach them how to do things better. So basically they are embedding something inside where they can start identifying a variety of things. And my most curious, I talk about how dangerous these things are. And it's one thing if the Roomba is collecting information about its current path and how to identify things. But here's the thing I notice about this, okay? They say that this is just to make the Roomba work better. This picture is looking up. This picture is kind of looking straight. If every picture looked like this and the camera is clearly static so it can analyze its path as it moves, that almost makes sense. But what is the purpose of pointing cameras up and identifying these are cabinets, this is a shelf, this is a kitchen countertop, this is this is a door, this is a cabinet? What is the purpose of all of these pictures where the thing is looking up? No, this company is trying to track everything you have in your house. Now, these types of photos here, once again, these were from people who were employees of the company or contractors who knew that they were having pictures taken and uploaded to the clouds. But then the question is, how did all of them, oh, and by the way, one more thing, Amazon, yes, I forgot about that. Amazon did purchase them. I was pretty sure they did, but I didn't want to mention it until I had a confirmation from the article. Amazon recently acquired it in a pending deal. So what purpose would Amazon have of mapping everything in your house, including, hey, this is a cabinet, this is a door, this is a photo, this is a TV. Yeah. So all these things were collected and they were sent out to some poor third world nation where they could pay somebody, a few pennies a day in order to sift through and make sure that the AI was doing a good job tagging things. But this is why you will not find a Roomba in my house. It's an evil spy, guys. Get these evil spies out of here. And on to our final story from Not the Bee. This mom took her daughter to Madison Square Garden, but facial recognition software identified her as an employee of a law firm suing Madison Square Garden's parent company, so she was simply kicked out. And the big question is, okay, you ran facial recognition. How did you know where I worked? And that raises a lot of troubling questions. So and we've seen these pictures mostly from China, but apparently this is Times Square. Very interesting. So apparently full-fledged facial recognition software, the same likes of China, is being deployed here in America. And this woman was not working on any cases relating to them. She just happened to work at a law firm that some other lawyer was doing some case against Madison Square Garden. And so on that basis alone, the facial ID software identified her's name, and even knew what company she worked for. And this is a real world case really going on in America today. And this is something we need to get ahead of this in the legal system. Unfortunately, it probably is not going to happen. So think about that, like full-fledged. This might be enough to get me to start, I don't know, wearing masks or something in public. I don't know. As long as I can find one you can actually breathe through, I guess that would be the case. Well, we do have affiliates here if you want to help support the channel. Today we are highlighting Linode, tlm.li/Linode. And with this, you can get $100 in credit, good for a 60-day free trial, good for any new account. You can spin up web hosting services, VPNs, restreaming servers, Minecraft servers, all sorts of fun stuff over there on Linode. And this is where I have a lot of my hosting right now. It works great. I have no complaints about it. $100 in for 60 days of free credit, tlm.li/Linode. And with that, let's go ahead and jump on down to security news. We're not going to dive deeply into this because my whole video coming out tomorrow covers this article. And so you can stay tuned for that one, premiering Saturday 24th at noon. And Lastpass says hackers actually stole those customer vaults. This is the same breach that happened a while back. They've been slowly rolling stuff out, and I think they knew what they had a long time ago. I think they're slowly rolling out information. LastPass, whatever, LastPass. They're slowly rolling stuff. First, it was just employee background, and then it was just some basic information about customer data. No, now it's actually your whole password vault. So if you were actually using a common password that could be found with a cred stuffing, guess what? These guys found everything. Everything you have in LastPass, you should assume, is compromised. I'm not going to go into much more detail here today because, again, we have a full video on this and what you can and should do, and some other concerns about this on the video later on. But Sevenrooms, a restaurant CRM platform, has a data breach. And I wanted to raise attention to this. A lot of companies are now outsourcing everything. You know, we're talking about outsourcing HR. We talked about an HR company was breached. And here's the problem. The HR companies breached. They're handling possibly up to millions of employees for hundreds of thousands of companies. One breach, everybody's data can be lost. Companies need to start self-hosting this stuff again. There are tons of self-hosted CRM platforms that, even if there is a general weakness in Suite CRM, for example, a free and open source CRM platform that's very good, even if there is a breach in that, they would also have to find your server. Now, could some botnet scour the internet looking for them? Possibly, but you have a lot lower breach of data if you're hosting your own platform rather than, let's just outsource it out to those guys who are outsourcing everything to themselves to have the lowest possible security that we can possibly think about. And this is what's happening to our nation is we are not managing things ourselves. We're outsourcing it, but every company we're outsourcing to is also trying to make the most money they can, spending the least money as they can. So they're also outsourcing to the lowest possible contractors, and everything can get lost. And so this is a restaurant platform, Sevenrooms, that manages the customer relationship databases for thousands and thousands of restaurants. And so the data that was leaked is basically the customer for thousands of restaurants. Some guest data, which may include names, email addresses, and phone numbers. Well, there's everything you need to do to start phishing someone. Isn't that great? With names, emails, and phone numbers. Isn't that awesome? If it's a high enough priority person, you now have the phone number tied to the name, so you can start in a specific campaign to attempt to sweet talk or pay somebody into giving you access to that phone number, because these people are outsourcing everything. Well, this is another one. Well, apparently the recession is getting so bad, the inflation is getting so bad that now people are like, I don't want your money anymore. Give me your food. So this is business email compromise attacks aimed at hijacking shipments of food products and ingredients. Screw the money. The milk is worth more. Okay. So basically what these hackers are doing is, in some cases, they're actually hijacking the email service themselves. In other cases, they're just spoofing emails or doing the typo squatting services, getting a domain similar to something else, and then sending out emails with information that they have, basically ordering food on other people's accounts, getting it delivered to them, and simply never paying the bill. And so that is the type of thing going on here because, hey, the recession's getting bad out there, folks. We need to find a way to eat. And these scammers are finding a way to eat. I mean, this is the way to do it right here. All right. Well, anyone using the popular, once again, using your MailChimp or other big keys, PHP list is a thing, folks. PHP list is a thing. Self-hosted email marketing system. Isn't that great? But people using MailChimp and a couple of other MailChimp, Mailgun, SendGrid, the Android apps for these applications, 600 different Android apps on the Google Play Store have been shown to leak the API keys for these three mail servers. So if you're using any of these and you're using any of these with an Android device, you might think about changing API keys and maybe some passwords around as well, because these various different apps that are utilizing or interfacing with MailChimp and other MailChimp, SendGrid, and Mailgun, these are leaking your credentials, and this is everything somebody needs to breach into your account and do fun and funky things. And on to our last article tonight. Have you, my friends, been virtually kidnapped? This is actually a more digitalized and better version of an old scam where someone would call up and pretend, they'd basically call up a family member of yours, pretend that they had you held hostage and demand this. Only now they can get voice prints and they'll do fun things like, basically, and my guess is the biggest way they're doing this is malware on phones is my guess. They're getting voice prints. They're getting contact lists. This tells me of some type of phone breach is how this is ultimately happening. But when somebody figures out your relationship to somebody and they have enough information, they'll call up your family member, maybe your old grandma or something, and be like, I have little Johnny. You want little Johnny? You got to cash at me $1,000. And of course, they do not actually have your loved ones hostage, but they might have enough information. And this is one of the warnings about not picking up the phone. So when I have to pick up, like, people will call me for business stuff, and I don't necessarily have everybody's name in the contact list, so I can't just not pick up the phone if it's not a number in my contact list. But if it is an unknown number, what you do, the best thing, you pick up the phone and you don't say anything. If it's a robocall, it will hang up because it hears the phone is picked up but doesn't hear anything. The robocalls are set to start making noise when they hear something. They will not start their robo pitch until you say hello. So you pick up the phone and you don't say anything. And if it's a robocall, in about 2 seconds, you'll hear the phone click off and then the call will end. If it is somebody, you're going to hear ambient noise in the background that you can, oh, okay, hi, this is a real human being. Well, it might still be a scammer, but probably not, because most of the scammers, their time is saved by utilizing a robocall to make the first original connection. When you get called by a scammer, it is rarely ever a live person on the phone. It is a computer calling you that is not going to pass your name over to the scammer until the phone hears something on your end. So you pick it up, you don't say anything. If it's not a real legitimate call, it will hang up in 2 seconds. All right. And so that would get around this, but this is another fun way of doing it. Here's how to spot it. Revisit your online presence, lock down or delete as appropriate in relationship, location, names, and phone numbers. Avoid posting travel dates and locations, which can add some fake legitimacy. So, you know, they're like, oh, they see where you're traveling to Tijuana. All right, we're going to spoof our number from Tijuana. Hey, we got some Johnny here. You want him? We need 1,000 peso. No, dollars, $4. Peso ain't worth nothing. Okay. And so... You don't tell people where you're going until you get back. Woo them with the wonderful places. This is why, you know, when I do Tux Traveler updates, it's not until I've left the area. So a lot of people are like, hey, you're here. You should go check out this. Yeah, I was there a month ago. Okay. Family members should have a password, which allows them to confirm. Yeah, there you go. There you go. The password is cheese and crackers. What's the password? Cheese and crackers. All right. It used to be that way. The scams were almost exclusively steered towards wire transfers. And now, of course, they're doing cash apps and stuff like that. All right. Well, if you want to help support the channel, we do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/TOMM. You can join us on over there at Patreon. And with that, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.